Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear viewers, dear brothers and sisters all across the world. Well, welcome to another episode of the program Thaqalayn Talks, presented to you by Noor Online Islamic Center. I am Ata, the host of this program. During this holy month of Ramadan, Noor Online Islamic Center and the program Thaqalayn Talks will present to you different topics related to the holy month of Ramadan, Islamic lifestyle, and the positive effects of fasting. For today's episode, we have invited Sheikh Khalil Rajani. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Welcome to the show.
Alaikum salam. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
You're welcome, brother. So, one of the positive effects of the concept of fasting and fasting during the holy month of Ramadan might be self-control and discipline in life. First of all, explain for us how fasting during the holy month of Ramadan is going to bring about such a positive effect in life. I mean, self-control and, we can say, discipline.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So, one thing we don't really realize about fasting, which is interesting because many of us begin fasting at the age of 7, 8, 9, is the effect that it has on us. One of the very important positive effects fasting has on us is that it teaches us self-control. To explain this further, it's a good way of understanding it is that as humans, we're always looking to achieve self-control. Each person in their life, whether it be entrepreneurship, whether it be at school, whether it be at university, whether it be at home, we're looking to get the better of ourselves, to be in control of ourselves, to be able to attain the most that we can attain. And we all know that the way to do that is to have some sort of discipline,
Yes.
to have some sort of control over what we're doing. A person who gets carried away, for example, a person who isn't in control of how much television they watch, for example, binge watching, right? One episode after the other, it's something they regret. It's something that they want to overcome. Somebody who, for example, has too much fast food, or somebody who has too much a diet that isn't something that they want to have. It's something they want to overcome. But it's very difficult, especially if you've been through it. It's very, very tough. But we don't realize that for 1 month in the year, we're able to have a very high level of self-control. The same person that, if you could imagine through the year, and this is going to start after Eid,
Yes.
and it's going to begin again, that every few minutes he finds himself in front of the fridge, opening the fridge to see if there's something, opening the cupboard to check if they have something over there. This person has been told not to eat breakfast
Yes.
and lunch,
Yes.
and no snacks in between, and no water in between as well.
Yes.
It sounds like an impossible task, but because we've sort of accustomed ourselves to doing this from a young age,
Yes.
we don't realize the miracle of the Prophet. It's, for example, according to some of the Marajah at least, immersing your head in water. All sorts of different things that are haram.
All the bad habits, maybe.
Yes, even smoking.
Yes.
Smoking is something that's impossible to stop. There's a lot of people that have tried to stop for a long time. Now you have a period of 12, 13, 14, 15,
Yes.
sometimes 18 hours.
I have to control myself more.
Yeah. So the Ahlul Bayt do focus on dhikr. Dhikr being these phrases and words that we mentioned. The Quran has many of these adhkar. The Hadith also have. There's different ones. In fact, some of the scholars even suggest sometimes to have one verse of the Quran that you're familiar with, to be able to turn back to refer back to at times when you feel like, for example, how can I avoid this distraction?
Yes.
But the key is not to get caught up in this dhikr. That's the dhikr on the tongue.
Yes.
Because the true dhikr is the dhikr of the heart, where a person actually is aware and remembers their purpose and is able to pull themselves back. That's what will really give depth to the dhikr on the tongue. You find many people, even for example, one of the key dhikr that we have, especially on these nights, it's mentioned the night of Qadr, to recite istighfar.
Yes.
There's many of the amal, the dua focus on istighfar. Many people, you see astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, it's become something they're saying on the tongue, but it has no reality inside.
Okay.
So the balance between these two is really key. That we have that remembrance.
Yes.
The way to strengthen that remembrance, the scholars mention, is to have some sort of evaluation for ourselves. Some sort of check on ourselves.
Okay.
That today, how did I manage? And we see this naturally when it comes to concepts like work or school or university, right? A person has checkpoint sort of tests on themselves. That did I manage? Was I able to achieve And if a person starts a business but has no check over himself whether he's achieving his goals or not,
Yes.
they can't be successful in their business. So we have these checks and these evaluations in our businesses, but we need to have them about ourselves as well. And what this will do, it'll help us identify those places that we need to be extra careful in.
Very good.
For example, I realized that on the football pitch, for example,
Yes.
or for example, when I'm speaking to this colleague, or for example, when I'm sleepy, or like you said, when my sugar is low,
Yeah.
that's when I'm prone to this sort of reaction.
When I get home tired.
When I get home tired.
My kids are playing.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. The kids run on you and they think
They
that
want
it's
to
the
take a
start of
short.
the day.
They want to take a short nap. They want to watch the
Exactly.
TV, with, especially with the loud voice.
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly.
Okay.
These are those moments that I'm prone to
Wow.
getting carried away.
Mhm.
And then what happens is if a person evaluates, they're able to be extra careful and vigilant at these times. That at these times, what's my situation? How am I managing? Am I able to maintain the true dhikr? And then of course, like you mentioned, there are certain adhkar through the year that have been mentioned, especially in certain months. For example, especially in the month of Rajab, the month of Sha'ban,
Yes.
the month of Ramadan, you find a lot of adhkar. Mafatih al-Jinan has many of them, in fact. And these 3 months, it's even difficult to manage most of these adhkar. With the true understanding, these adhkar, the scholars tell us, will have the true effect and that profound change from within.
That's all right. And now, Shaykh, a serious question, maybe it's a little bit controversial question, but now some people might say that although the religion of Islam is rooted in discipline, it's very much emphasizes on discipline and nazr. So why do we see this concept maybe more in the non-Islamic states or lands than the Islamic ones? Of course, this might be only a conjecture, a guess, but I do want to say you have traveled yourself to different countries all around the world. First, is this claim true or not? And if yes, why? The non-Muslim lands must be more disciplined than the Islamic ones.
Like you said, I think it is true in certain countries. So I've had the chance to travel to the West and sort of the East. I've actually lived in a country that has quite strict order. I grew up in the United Arab Emirates, Dubai. So I think to an extent it does exist. Like I said, you said yourself, this is sort of a topic that requires a lot of time. So I'll just suggest one idea. I found a lot of the order, I think we can approach it from two sides. So let me say two separate points. One point is that a lot of the order is created through policing. So it seems to be external to a great extent. The few that I've seen. There are other countries where it's not. I'll speak about that in the second point. But I have seen it in certain countries where this order seems to be quite strongly external, which is a good thing in itself to have that order. And additional to that, it's sad to see that Muslim countries don't have that sort of order. And I think that's somewhere where we can improve on, and that's somewhere we can really work forward on. Alhamdulillah, the little that I've seen that we spent over here, alhamdulillah,
Yes.
Your program has been very regular with the time and
Yes.
alhamdulillah, the setup
Okay.
and everything. So at least we see it in the more religious sort of people who are more dedicated. Even it's famous from the scholars. If you look at, for example, the person that's the epitome of this, Imam Khomeini, it's mentioned that at that time they didn't have sort of these mobile clocks that would give the standard time.
Yes.
It says that they would set their time on their clocks and their watches based on his movement. So we definitely have this in the ulama, and you even have this in the hadith, in fact, being the night after the shahada of first imam. In his final wasiyah, he makes the wasiyah, وَنَظْمِ أَمْرِكُمْ.
Yes.
أُوصِيكُمْ بِتَقْوَى اللَّهِ وَنَظْمِ أَمْرِكُمْ.
That's right.
To have order in your affairs.
Yes. Imam
So it's
Mahdi
definitely true, yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
This,
Yes.
The final wasiyah he has to,
Okay.
I think it's letter 47
Yes.
of Nahj Balagha to Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein alayhi salam.
That's right.
He mentions that have taqwa, I advise you to have taqwa and have order in your affairs. So you definitely see this, but unfortunately to a great extent in many Islamic countries it's not taught in the way it needs to be. So there's one point that sometimes you find that it's external. Even in countries where you do find it has become internalized, because you will find countries that people, generally for example Europe tends to be like this slightly more than other places.
Yes.
I haven't traveled too much of Europe, but the little I've seen has this, and people who've sort of seen it say the same. It seems to be a positive human trait that they've been able to develop, and it's something that even though we don't look up to and aspire to their lifestyle in the ideological sense in most aspects, but it's a positive thing. I mean, order is something. There's a famous story of the Holy Prophet where he sort of set a time with somebody that will meet over here on this day.
Yes.
And the person didn't turn up. And the narration that I remember just now is that the people around the Prophet said, "Look, you're under the sun. At least come under the shade." So he says, "No, I told this guy I'm going to be waiting here. I'll wait right here."
Okay.
And he waited a long period of time until that person came in that very spot. So it's definitely something that's deeply rooted in Islam. And like I said, the ulama had the same model. If you look at just a person who's able to pray all of his prayers on time,
yes,
is a person that has to have order in their life. You cannot be a person who doesn't have order in your life and pray all your prayers on time. So if you look at these instructions from the great scholars like Ayatollah Bahjat, Ayatollah Qazi, the great scholars were telling us that one of the key instructions about life is to pray on time. Means you have to have order.
So do you believe that this type of discipline is rooted in the fitrah of human beings? I mean, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blown venomous spirit into the human beings at the time of creation. But at the same time, we see so many people who become, for example, atheists or agnostic, do not believe in God or Prophet or any religion. When you take a look at their life, they observe very much discipline, but at the same time, they do not believe in any religion. So how this contradiction is going to be solved?
Yeah, I do agree that this is, like I said, a human value. Order brings about efficiency, and humans like to be efficient.
Yes.
You can get more done in less time. So any intellectual person would be one that does abide by order. In fact, anyone that's successful has to have order in their lives. Because even if you want to do business well, even if you want to do, if you want to be good at school, you want to be good at your career, whatever the career may be, order is a key. It allows for that efficiency to happen. If you're going to be sleeping in class or at work, you're likely not going to get that promotion or that grade that you're looking for. A person who has that order is a person who will achieve. That's why even when you look at other non-Muslim role models for people into entrepreneurship and things like this, their schedules are very, very back-to-back. So even a person like, for example, some of the richest people in the world that are famous, it's not that they wake up at, for example, 6 in the morning, they sleep at 9 or 10 at night. They're very careful because that's what brings about efficiency. That's what allows us as humans to make the optimum benefit and maximize on our time. And anyone would like that. I mean, the only enemy of this is laziness and procrastination. And everyone knows that laziness is a bad thing, but it's fun.
That's right. And do you think that being on time, I mean, and this efficiency, the true meaning of efficiency means only be too prosperous in this world? I mean, to find, for example, good work or to be on time or something like that? Because, sometimes we see that some countries, nowadays are very much famous by the discipline that they have. At the same time, I can name Japan, for example. At the same time, we could see they are among the highest countries who commit suicide, brother.
Ahsant, that's a brilliant point. That efficiency, if we look at it with a very narrow viewpoint, it's limited to this world, like Japan. But if we want to look at it properly, that's why we have a hadith that says that al-kayyis, kayyis is the one that's clever, smart, intelligent, is the one, for example, that remembers death a lot. But for them, that doesn't make any sense. So the Imam is actually teaching us, if you want to be clever, if you want to be somebody that uses their time wisely, then remembering death, remembering the hereafter, and planning for the hereafter is something that will give us that.
Human discipline is not going to lead into obsession for us.
Obsession.
Being obsessed, for example, with doing things on time, and if not doing that, there is going to be harsh consequences in our lives. For example, see, some of the people nowadays around the world are depressed, or for example, they commit suicide, as I said, or they go to therapies, or they cannot find solutions for the problems in their life because they always feel backward in comparison to the time zone, to the discipline, to this hectic, machine-like, robotic format of the lifestyle they taste, brother.
I agree. And that's actually a very good point, that if we try and exercise discipline in a single dimension of our life, that's exactly what will happen. it'll result in us not being fulfilled in the other parts of our life. Like a person who, for example, becomes a workaholic. If you just take the worldly example, a person who becomes a workaholic may be extremely efficient when it comes to work, but is missing out on children, on their family, on their recreation. Now, if you look at this at a bigger scale, a person who's efficient when it comes to this worldly life, even if you take in all the other facets of this worldly life, but isn't careful of their real purpose, that person also would live a life where they wouldn't have that complete sense of fulfillment that's holistic, that's comprehensive. To have that comprehensive fulfillment, we need to have the discipline across the board. And that's why that's the importance of the guidance of religion. Because the guidance of religion doesn't only push us and advocate for growth in a certain aspect of life. It invites us to growth in all of the different aspects of life, whether it be our physical, whether it be our emotional, or even our spiritual progress. So all of these come hand in hand. And these would allow us to live a fulfilling life. Like you said, places like, for example, Japan, where they have that extreme model of discipline. But because they lack that attention towards spirituality, they lack attention towards their mental health, towards their emotional stability, and health in general, they're not able to live a life that's fulfilling.
This is why maybe sometimes we find the wealthiest people of the world, committing suicide, as I said, or, for example, they use really strong pills in order to get tranquilizers, they call it, okay? In order to get tranquility and calmness and serenity inside, but still they are not successful. So, discipline, if it is juxtaposed or come together with the concept of spirituality, spiritual growth in Islam, can help the people very much in order to find salvation in both worlds, this world and the hereafter.
That's the real discipline. That's the comprehensive, holistic discipline. Otherwise, to have discipline just in a certain aspect of our life isn't true discipline.
Okay, that's all right. And so through self-control we can reach discipline too, isn't it?
Yeah, so like I said, self-control seems to be that inner decision that you make. Discipline is sort of the effect it has on your life, that sort of order that it brings about in your life. Discipline has to be driven by self-control. Discipline that's not driven by self-control isn't lasting. Isn't something that we can rely upon. Okay,
that's all right. So let's listen to an audio question now, live coming to us. You are watching Thaqalayn Talks, brothers and sisters, presented to you by Noor Online Islamic Center. If you got any audio question, we are ready to hear it. Okay, no audio question. That's right. Okay, so let's get to the next question now, brother, and that is the question of, again, I want to talk more about the concept of discipline. We can say, when you refer to the Islamic references, you see two types of disciplines. One of them is called taqween, and the other one tashri'. In the taqween one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created the world with a kind of discipline. And in the tashri' one, there are some rulings that are going to give you this type of discipline. Which one of them we can say are more significant? They can help us more in understanding the concept of discipline better in our lifestyle.
So the existential discipline that you speak about, the taqweeni discipline, that seems to be something that can be an inspiration for us, something that we can admire, something that we can take lessons from. But the legislative discipline, the tashri'i discipline, seems to be the one that has the most practical and direct effect on our lives, because that's the part of discipline that is pertaining to our willpower. And willpower is a very central concept when it comes to self-discipline. See, the beauty around us, the nature, all the beauties that Allah has created, they're amazing for us to take lessons from, but we don't have any role in them. We don't actively do anything or enhance any element of ourselves when looking at them. It's something that we understand, we take within, we appreciate. But the legislative, that's to do with the rulings, part of discipline, that's actually adopting that discipline into our lives. So I feel that's the part that has the real effect on creating this discipline within ourselves and creating and allowing us to have that self-control. That'll actually give us that boost and that enhancement.
So many people across the world, by looking at this existential, we can say, discipline, thought more, in depth about the nature of this creation. So that's why step by step they got to spirituality, knowing God more, converting to monotheistic religions and the religion.
That mainly works with the discussion of ideology, of having our views. But in terms of actually actively making this discipline a part of me, in fact, if you think about it, the Sharia is actually a miracle in this sense. Because even if we were to say that, let's say we want somebody to learn self-discipline, and we want to give them some sort of practical program for it, we'd have to create some sort of order in their life. We'd have to create some sort of standards that they achieve in their life. And the more comprehensive this is, the more complete the self-control will be. Now Islam has given us this system that's not just an arbitrary system that has no realities behind it, but the success of the human being relies upon these very same rulings. So when it comes to eating, there's specific rulings: when to eat, when not to eat, what to eat, how to eat, where to eat, who to eat with. When it comes to, for example, going to sleep, all of these we have rulings on what time, where, what environment, what to recite before going to sleep, what to recite when wake up, when to wake up, all of this. When it comes to work, again, loads of instructions that are there to. So all of these, if we're able to adopt these in our lives, this would make us self-disciplined. This would be the key factor that everyone's looking for, essentially. It was interesting when you said that people, I didn't look at it from this perspective, but people who don't see these legislations in Islam, they're often looking for something like this. They're often looking for a program in life where, what am I supposed to when it comes to how I speak? Right? For example, some people are strong when they speak. And they'll tell you that, look, the way to speak to people, you shouldn't be soft, you should be a pushover, you have to be strong when you speak. Some people may say that, no, the key to winning people's hearts is to speak slowly, to speak softly, to speak in a way that you're always humble in front of the other person. When it comes to business, some people say you have to be aggressive, everyone's got their own strategies. But Islam is able to show us, and is the key to showing us, that in each situation, what is the suitable action to show. And that's really beautiful. That in fact we have this whole package with us, but we don't appreciate it. We treat the Sharia often to be some sort of restriction upon ourselves.
And truly it's not a restriction, but a promotion in our lives. That's right. There's a question that's right, Brother Amin has sent us, Salaam alaikum. If we want to read more about the concept of self-control, is there any references that you suggest?
So self-control, like you mentioned, is a concept that's quite closely connected to jihad with the nafs. Self-building. So there's a few books and resources that are available in this topic. So for example, self-building itself, there's a book with the title Self-Building that was written by Marhum Ayatollah Ibrahim Amini, who passed away just a few years ago. That's one of the resources available in this field. Generally, if you look at other books on spirituality and akhlaq, you find similar sort of instructions that help us gain this control over ourselves. For example, another one that comes to mind just now is a book that's just been recently printed, the Treatise of Rights of Imam Sajjad. Has been, there's an exegesis of it that's just been printed that also helps us understand very much. So that also explains the discipline with regards to the people around us, and the exegesis, the commentary on it, expands on that as well. There's other books on akhlaq that are also quite popular, like The Immaculate Conscience by Shahid Dasghaib, or The Greater Sins, also by the same author, Gunahan Kabira or Qalb Salim, both by the same author, Shahid Dasghaib.
Jihad al-Nafs, Ayatollah Mazahiri, also.
Is that a translation?
Also the late Imam Khomeini has the book, that's right. Jihad al-Nafs also, it is the 15th volume of Wasail al-Shia, I mean, there is a bab, there is a
Correct.
chapter
But
regarding
has that been translated?
jihad, yes,
Perfect.
and of jihad and jihad
Yeah.
al-nafs. I mean,
So Sheikh Hur in
yes,
Wasail al-Shay,
yes,
when he reaches
yes.
the discussion on jihad,
yes.
he has a section afterwards,
Section,
jihad
that's
from
right.
al-nafs.
Okay, that's all right. Thank you very much, Sheikh Ali Rajani, for a nice elaboration regarding this topic. Your final remarks, brother, if you got any suggestion or practical guideline for the people, self-control and discipline.
So I think it's a great opportunity to now that we have about 8 fasts or so
Yes.
remaining,
Yes.
that we be more mindful when we're fasting, that we pay attention to this trait that we are creating within ourselves,
Very good.
and especially on the day of Eid,
Mhm.
to see we've worked so hard to gain this, and then to let go of it again and just sort of start from zero again would be really sad.
Yes.
So I think a good lesson for all of us, beginning with myself, is that if we're able to learn from this control that we've
Very
achieved,
good.
maybe before hearing this talk we haven't thought about it in this manner,
Yes.
that wait a sec, my fasting is actually self-control itself, and a
Mhm.
very difficult form of self-control. Eating and drinking is two
Yes.
of the hardest things, and the desires, 3 of the hardest things to
Yes.
control. To be able to have good control over that and to manage. That doesn't mean that we continue fasting through the year.
Mhm.
Obviously, that's not practical.
Okay.
But maybe to try.
Although this has been a habit of the great scholars of
Yeah.
Islam to keep fasting most of the days.
I guess
the
if we could. Some people try and fast on Thursdays, for example,
Yes.
or Mondays when possible, the big nights,
Yes.
the big days. If you can fast.
Big month of the year,
True.
Rajab, Sha'ban,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
right.
especially the
Okay.
peak of them. But something that's very practical is that, for example, to identify within myself, where am I getting carried away?
Mhm.
Am I getting carried away in my speaking, when backbiting, my
Very
desires?
good.
Is it, for example, my haram income? To get an idea of that, to track that, and then to practice the same skill that now we're experts at.
Yes.
30 days is not a short period of time.
Yes.
To acknowledge that in the remaining days, and then to carry on after Eid. Eid to be a day of return,
Yes.
as the word comes from Aoud,
Yes.
a day of return, and not a day of return back to
Yes.
what was before the month of Ramadan. A day of return means that a return from all of our sins, that we leave. Even there's one of the adab of the Eid prayers that's really beautiful,
Okay.
that it says that leave the Eid prayers from a different door that you entered from,
Mhm.
as if you've entered the Eid prayers, you've left your past behind, and now you're leaving as a new person,
That's right.
with this skill of self-discipline. So
That's
that would be
right.
something for us to all benefit from, inshallah, in these last few days of this holy month.
Inshallah, and to keep the spirit of the holy month of Ramadan alive. I mean, after Eid al-Fitr too, inshallah, in the upcoming days and the moments of our life. Thank you very much, Shaykh Ali Rajani, for a nice elaboration regarding the concepts of self-control and discipline and how fasting helps us to observe these two more in our life. It was very kind of you.
So thank you very much for the opportunity. It was great being here.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much, dear brothers and sisters and Muslims, for watching Thaqalayn Talks presented to you by Noor Online Islamic Center.